Hey friends, this story began 42 years ago when I was in college in Tulsa. I was from Virginia, my roommate Scott from San Diego. He a senior, I a freshman. I met a fellow on campus by the name of Rob Case. Rob was from Oregon but grew up in Arkansas and we became good friends. We were both involved in communications. I was in radio production and Rob in television production. When Scott graduated the next year, Rob and I were going to room together. But what do they say? The best laid plans of mice and men. Tuition costs went up a lot. I didn't come back. Ended up graduating on the East Coast years later. Well, Facebook was created in '04, but opened up to the rest of us in '06. I joined Facebook 2 years later in '08. Not sure when Rob did, but I guess about the same time, because in 2009 we became Facebook friends. Fast forward 13 years to 2022. I was planning the route for Renee and me to head to Baja California. I reached out to Rob, told him that we would be visiting Tulsa in January, and he said, hey, why don't you and your wife come and meet Jan, my wife, here in Guthrie, about 90 minutes from Tulsa. Spend a few days with us. I don't know if I'd ever looked forward to anything more in my life. Seeing my old friend after 40 plus years, hanging out for 3 days. He and Jan welcomed us into their home, fed us very well. We talked, laughed, caught up on our life stories, played cards. They taught us mahjong, and we had a great time. We left their home in Guthrie, promised to do better at keeping in touch. A week later, I received the word that Rob had suffered a major brain bleed. He was in the hospital. 2 days later, he was gone. We delayed this episode because we wanted to be respectful of his family, and it's now a very difficult story to tell. But I want to honor Rob by introducing you to him, allow you to see the kind of man that he was, experience the town that he and Jan chose to settle in, and in my own way, pay my respects. Friends, this is a very difficult, very different episode, and more than ever, I thank you for joining us on the journey. Guthrie, Oklahoma is as old west as you can get. I mean, it was back in 1889 when there was the land run. It was a railroad station stop there, and people began growing this town. It became the territorial capital. Then in 1907, it became the capital of Oklahoma. Then a few years later, they chose to move it to the larger city of Oklahoma City. Beautiful buildings, beautiful architecture here. I mean, just look at the brickwork. Look at the detail work on these buildings. The historic district of Guthrie has more than 2,000 buildings that are in the historic district. The city itself is a National Historic Landmark. Only 4 months after the town's birth in August of 1889, the city directory listed 6 banks, 16 barbers, 16 blacksmiths, 17 carpenters, 2 cigar manufacturers, 5 newspapers, 7 hardware stores, 15 hotels, 19 pharmacists, 22 lumber dealers, 39 doctors, 40 restaurants, and an astounding 80 lawyers. Imagine a town growing that fast. 4 months. The Oklahoma Territorial Museum and the Carnegie Library. The museum documents the creation of the unassigned lands and the land run of 1889. When you come to Guthrie and walk through this town, you are literally walking through history. Guthrie certainly has its history of the Wild West characters, those who are bank robbers and outlaws. In fact, I'm going to let my friend Rob Case tell you about one of those in just a little bit. Just walked into the drugstore museum here in Guthrie. Nice lady inside, and we brought Jenny in there and looked around. Really cool, really cool. Let me show it to you. The Pharmacy Museum is to help people understand, to acquaint the public with the everyday independent pharmacy and honor the pharmacists who opened stores in Oklahoma from 1889 and their first state pharmacy school, which opened in 1893. Pharmacists were first licensed in Indian Territory by a board of pharmacy. Medicines from all over have been donated. Things that have been collected were donated here to this museum. The building itself is called the Guthrie Building. It was built in 1890 and at one time was occupied by the early day Lilly Drug Store. In a side corner room is where there was a small doctor's office. Not a small doctor, but, a small office for a doctor. Overall, a really cool museum to go into and to kind of look back into history and see what things looked like and what it must have been like when, you know, you'd go to a pharmacist and hopefully get the right medicine. All right. Hey, folks, we're sitting in Guthrie, Oklahoma. Now, if you don't know where Guthrie, Oklahoma is, get out your maps and look. We used to live, well, Rob and I used to live in Tulsa, Oklahoma when we were going to college. You saw earlier in the video Oral Roberts University and when we were in Tulsa. And so we just went, what was it, about 2 hours, 3 hours?
About 2 hours.
About 2 hours from Tulsa, headed west, and you get to Guthrie. And how far are we from Oklahoma City?
We're about 30 to 40 minutes from Oklahoma City.
Okay, so not far. Guthrie, Oklahoma they were the capital of the territory of Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And then Oklahoma City later stole it, and you can do your research on that one, and became the capital of Oklahoma when it became a state. But I understand, Rob, that there is a famous bank robber that was kind of like a failure at bank robbing, but there's a story there somewhere.
The bandit who couldn't be taken alive.
The bandit who couldn't be. That sounds interesting to me. I'll tell our folks about that.
Well, his name is Elmer McCurdy. He was born in 1880. He had served for some time in the military, where he learned how to operate things like gas-powered machine guns, explosives like nitroglycerin for demolition purposes, and he had spent some time mining also, but he was just never successful at anything. So he took to bank robbing and train robbing. And the most famous time of his career was a failure. He had blown open a bank vault, and all the contents were destroyed, kind of like Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. They might have borrowed that concept from this historical moment. There was still a safe inside. He blew that open, and he managed to get about $100 worth of silver coins, but most of the contents were melted to the sides of the safe, so he didn't get a lot out of it. But he then robbed a train, and he thought he was robbing a payroll train with a safe, and it was the wrong train. It was a passenger train. So he ended up getting about $40 off the conductor, not much more. He and his partners took some of the whiskey that was on the train, a couple of demijohns of whiskey. He polished off one while hiding out in a barn in misery over his failure. Sheriff came out and they tracked him down and shot him in the barn, but he wasn't fighting back because he was too drunk. He was embalmed in the area, and then they used arsenic instead of just common embalming fluid. So that was one of the details that comes up later in tracing him back to who he truly was. Uh, they didn't have any knowledge of who his next of kin was, and someone showed up claiming to be from California, long lost cousin or brother, to claim the body. And they cleared it with the sheriff. They hauled him off. They put him on the train thinking, okay, yeah, we'll release him to your custody. The train didn't go to California. The train went up to Arkansas City, Kansas. And he was put in a sideshow.
So the dead body is put into a sideshow.
Yeah. Now, this guy was, they prop him with a firearm, rifle by his side, but he's just all stiffened up.
Come here, kids, get your picture taken with the dead guy.
Yeah, pretty much. And then he was sold to another sideshow that specialized in wax museum statues, and everyone thought, it's just another wax dummy. So, over the years, he just gradually made his way to California, and there was a sideshow in Long Beach, California, that specialized in wax museum statues, replicas, and everyone thought it was just another one of the wax museum dummies. Fast forward to 1977, and Lee Majors and the $6 Million Man was filming at this sideshow. They had a special theme for their show with the wax dummies. And someone decided to move this wax dummy over and broke an arm. Just moving props, and they thought it was just another prop. Broke an arm, and it revealed a human bone and human flesh. So then they had to investigate, how did this person die? And is it really ancient, or is it a recent murder? And they said no, arsenic in the embalming. So he had a certain texture, covered with phosphorescent paint. They scrambled through for evidence, and they found a penny from 1911, which was the year he was killed. And the penny was in his mouth. They did weird things to the corpses back then in the West, and they ticket for this and just different things that led them to contacting Guthrie and talking to a relative of the coroner from back then, and that's Elmer McCurdy. Someone came and got his body, and that's him. How he was shot, the type of bullet casing that was around the bullet itself. So they tracked him down. They shipped him back to Guthrie, Oklahoma, and to make sure that no one carted off this historical figure, they have covered the gravesite in concrete.
Wow. Now, in 2023, the cultural mindset of today, somebody in his family needs to be suing for back wages. I mean,
but he was never successful in life, so there wouldn't be much wages due.
I know, but all was he a member of the Screen Actors Guild? All these performances this guy did, standing there, hey kids, a $1 a picture with a dead guy. There should be some wages there somewhere, I guess. But so he's buried here in Guthrie, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Doesn't get any stranger than that. All right, Rob, thanks, man. Thanks for sharing that story with us. And I'll show you a picture of Rob and Jan in just a minute. Thanks for watching our channel. It's a neat town. It really is worth your visit. You can't go wrong going through these old buildings and looking into historic museums like the Drugstore Museum and the Sports Museum. And it's a cool cool area. Outside the Licorice Man in Guthrie, Oklahoma, and I got an Earps original sarsaparilla, and he opened it for me in there. And this is actually made by the Earps family, Wyatt Earps family, and it is sarsaparilla, and it's that's good stuff. It's chug worthy. At Licorice Man, we picked up some taffies, and luckily enough for us, it's kind of got a guide on the outside telling you what you're eating, because you know you're looking at the flavors in there, and there are just so many of them. Mine, all mine. Well, anyway, and so they've also got a saltwater taffy flavor guide, and you know, need glasses. I mean, some flavors are apple pie, and then banana, Boston cream pie, one of my favorites, banana split, blueberry muffin, candy corn, candy apple, buttered popcorn, Buckeye for you Ohio folks, bubblegum, caramel apple. I've tried that one. That one is really good. Cantaloupe, caramel corn, caramel cheesecake. Renee likes chicken and waffles. Chili mango, there you go. Caramel swirl, frosted carrot cake, chocolate caramel mocha. And I heard Jenny whine she wants one. She likes the vanilla one. Chocolate mint, chocolate malt, cookies and cream. I mean, on and on. Eggnog, frosted cupcake, macadamia, guava, green apple, key lime, golden pear, huckleberry for you hound dogs out there. Red velvet, peanut butter and jelly. Now, this one is my favorite, if I can find it. Maple bacon. It's so confusing. It could be, no, that's peaches and cream, I think. I don't, here we go. This is it right here. Maple bacon. We're gonna try that one again, and I'll show you just how good it is. Of course, taffy, you know, gets hard, and so you kind of got to put it in your mouth and let it warm up a little bit. I think I got the booger flavored one. No, I'm just kidding. It's maple bacon. Licorice Man, you do a good job. Good stuff there, man. Maple bacon. Taffy, don't leave home without it.